Why you read a text and never reply. You saw it. You read every word. You even had a response forming in your head. And then, nothing. 3 days later, someone asks if you got their message. You say, "Oh, sorry, I must have missed it." Except you didn't. You read it. You just never replied. Why does this happen? And why does it happen with the people you actually like? Not the people you're avoiding? Here's what's going on. When you read a text message, your brain does something it shouldn't. It files the conversation as handled. Not replied to, not finished, just handled. The same way your brain can feel like it has cleaned the kitchen after simply thinking about cleaning it, the intention registers as the action. And once something feels handled, your brain moves on. It's not laziness, it's not rudeness, it's a filing error. But while your brain quietly files the conversation away, the person who sent it is doing something completely different. They sent the message, they put their phone down, then they picked it up again, checking for the 3 little dots, checking if you'd replied. At first, it doesn't mean much. Maybe you're busy, maybe you haven't seen it, but after a day, something changes. The silence starts saying something they never meant to hear. All of this while you've already forgotten the message was waiting. The strange part is, this happens far more today than it ever used to. A text arrives while you're working, while you're talking to someone else, while your attention is already split in 6 different directions. Your brain was never designed for this much communication, so it creates a shortcut. Read it, register it, deal with it later. Except later rarely comes, because before later arrives, 10 more messages have arrived, and the one you meant to answer quietly disappears beneath them. Not deleted, not forgotten, just buried. But here's where it gets interesting. The messages that stay unanswered the longest are almost never the urgent ones. "Are you coming tonight?" gets answered immediately. "Hey, thinking of you." Waits 11 days. Why? Because urgent messages create what psychologists call an open loop. Your brain wants to close them. But warm messages, a check-in, a simple, "How are you doing?" don't have deadlines. So your brain quietly moves them into a folder called later, and later is where things quietly disappear. There's another reason this happens. Some messages feel too important to answer quickly. A friend who's struggling, someone you haven't spoken to in months, a message that deserves more than, "Haha, yeah." So you wait until you have more time, until you find the right words, until you're in the right headspace. But while you're waiting, the message gets older. The longer it waits, the harder it becomes to answer, until replying feels so overdue that somehow not replying feels easier, which is how a message you genuinely cared about becomes one you quietly dread opening. And this is where it becomes almost mathematical. On day 1, replying takes 10 seconds. On day 3, it takes an explanation. On day 10, it feels like it needs an apology. On day 30, it feels like starting an entirely new conversation. The message didn't get harder, the silence around it did. Every day you don't reply, the distance grows a little wider, and the wider it gets, the more energy it takes to cross. So instead, you don't cross it, you just carry it. A quiet background weight that returns every time their name appears. A mutual friend mentions them. You see something that reminds you of them, and for a second you think, "I really need to reply." Then the moment passes. The message stays exactly where it was, getting older. And here's what makes this genuinely complicated. The longer you wait, the more the message changes. Not the words stay exactly the same, but the meaning around them shifts. A message that arrived as warmth starts to feel like an obligation. A check-in that came from care starts to feel like pressure. Something that was easy to answer on day one starts to feel loaded with everything that happened in the days since. You're no longer replying to the original message, you're replying to the silence you created around it. And that's a completely different thing to answer, which is why some messages stay unanswered. Not because you don't care, but because you care too much about getting the reply exactly right. The more you wait, the heavier it feels, until eventually, the message is no longer a message, it's a debt. And here's the strange part. The person who sent it has no idea any of this is happening. They just think you ignored them. Meanwhile, you've probably thought about that message 4 or 5 different times. You've imagined replying. You felt guilty. You've promised yourself you'd answer later. You were never trying to ignore them. You were waiting for a version of yourself that finally felt ready, and somehow, that version never showed up. There's actually a name for the gap between intending to do something and actually doing it. Researchers call it the intention-action gap, and texting might be where it appears more than anywhere else. Because texting feels small enough to postpone, but personal enough to feel guilty about postponing. That combination, low urgency, high guilt, creates the unread message that quietly follows you around for days. And while all of this is happening inside your head, something much quieter is happening on the other side of the screen. They don't know about the guilt. They don't know about the replies you've already written in your head. All they know is the silence. And silence, when nobody explains it, becomes its own message. Not the one you meant to send, but the one they received. This is how friendships drift apart. Not through arguments, not through one dramatic goodbye, but through messages that felt too important to answer quickly, then too delayed to answer comfortably, and eventually too overwhelming to answer at all. Until one day, you realize you haven't spoken to someone you genuinely care about in months, and neither of you can quite explain how it happened, because it never really did. It happened one unanswered message at a time, and yet, most of the time, it isn't too late. The person on the other side is often carrying their own version of the same silence, wondering if they should reach out, wondering if too much time has passed, waiting for someone to send the first message. So next time you find yourself staring at a message you've already read 3 times, don't wait for the perfect reply. Send the imperfect one. A short reply is almost always better than a perfect reply that never gets sent. Because the longer you wait for the right words, the more the silence begins to say something you never meant. If this made you think of someone you still owe a message to, maybe don't wait until tomorrow. Just send it. So, what's the longest you've ever left someone unread? And did you ever actually reply? If this made you see something differently, a like tells us to keep going. Until next time, keep shifting your perspective. Subscribe for more Mind Shift.